Institute, which has been working since 2002 for the last 23 years now. We do research on different development issues like health, education, livelihood. And we also have a PhD program which is affiliated to Calcutta University. And we have scholars who are researching a diversity of topics in IDSK. Today, our director, Professor Basdev Dashgupta, is not able to be here. He has had to go to Delhi for some work, so he sends his apologies. And before we go on to the rest of the program, I would like to invite Professor Shamulendu Mojumdar of CRG to talk about CRG and the City Lights public lecture series.
Very good afternoon to all of you. Well, I welcome you all on behalf of CRG. And this program is being organized jointly by IDSK and Calcutta Research Group. And the inter-program comes under the project of CFORE, Canadian Institute for Advanced Studies. Actually, we are conducting a series of lectures in collaboration with different academic institutions as well as certain cultural bodies. And our principal aim, from the very title you can understand, City Lights. We are addressing the issues of the making and unmaking of cities, and definitely we are going beyond the typical structure of urban studies. We are revisiting history. We are exploring the nuances of city life, how city evolves and how city comes into being and how it takes shape in modern world, and the internalities and externalities of city life, how issues like class formation, class enmity, and other fault lines of our social life, and of course the different aspects of cities' growth and evolution. Today we are offering one of the lectures under the City Lights program, and Dr. Poushali Basak, sorry. Poushali Basak is a very bright scholar. She obtained her PhD degree from TIS Mumbai. And she is not only carrying on her research, she is taking all the trouble of organizing this series of lectures. And she is an excellent organizer. So I welcome her on DAS, and she would be delivering her next lecture. Thank you very much.
Shimontini is an assistant professor of economics at IDSK, and her areas, research interests are aligned to looking at girl children's education in West Bengal.
So we have with us Dr. Poushali Basak, and as she's been already introduced, but I'll briefly state her bio note. She's currently working as a research and program assistant at Calcutta Research Group. She has completed her PhD in Women's Studies and has been recently awarded the degree from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Her areas of research and work interests are the political and the urban, right to city, gender and education, social movements, gender studies, queer lives and livabilities. She is associated with different feminist, queer and democratic rights movement spaces. So, Dr. Basak, we welcome you and we are very happy to have you here at IDSK. And she's going to speak on the topic Dream Deferred, Girl-Child Education in Post-COVID Kolkata. As we all know, early marriage is a very harsh reality in West Bengal and also in Kolkata. Compared to the other metropolitan cities, the rate of early marriage is pretty high. And education, if you look at NFHS figures, completion of secondary education That is also quite low in West Bengal and compared to the metros in Kolkata. So over to you, Poushali, about 45 minutes, and then we'll have a discussion.
To the Institute of Development Studies, Kolkata. So, yeah, as my topic is titled Dream Deferred, Girl-Child Education in Post-COVID Kolkata. To start off, my area of work, I'm not exactly a scholar of education studies, but I have done some research work on early and child marriage, and also has been doing some archival work on education and the history of Bombay, the mill districts of Bombay. And those research experiences have somewhere formed as a background to this research also. The aim of this research when we started, and I've been working with Professor Ranabir Shamaddar, has been basically to look at the situation of gender and education, educational aspirations, access to education for women, for girls in the city. This was a very abstract, overarching question with which we started. But to sharpen our focus and to sharpen the research objectives, one could see that it will be essential. It became essential to look at the category of girl child and the developmental category of girl child, which has been researched quite a lot. There is extensive literature, scholarly work on girl child marriage, girl child education. But the perspective from where we started, and I started looking at this research and field of area, was basically situating the girl child in the city and looking at how within city the nature of schooling, public schooling has been happening. Who are the people who have been accessing government schools? Who are the girl children who have been accessing public education? What are the impact of the schemes of at state level, the state level schemes and the central level schemes? And of course, the overarching problem of dropout, which has been only increasing through the years, as we know. And this has, to put it briefly, a lot of research work has actually happened in the districts and the districts of different states, even in, of course, in West Bengal also. But the city-specific mapping of the situation has not yet happened in that way, and that is where the focal point of this research was. So when we talk about dream deferred, of course, it is about the aspirations and dreams of children themselves, of children coming from marginalized communities, but also on the other hand, how does public policy and public policy look at education now? And so the aspirations or the aims and objectives of government schemes and public policies. So looking at aspirations from both these perspectives and angles. To start off, I will, just laying out the background of the research. So looking at the financial and policy shifts that has happened in the last few years in Kolkata, in the context of Kolkata, but also nationally, and one can see that the investment, the economic investment by central and state governments in education has been falling rapidly in the last few years. So if going according to the economic survey report of 2023-24, it lays out how the country's GDP, the minuscule amount of portion that is spent on education has been also like there's a very marginal increase. So from 2017 to 2024, 2.7% to 2.9% of the country's GDP has been spent on education. As part of the total expenditure, the expenditure in education has been falling from 10.7 to 9.2%. As part of social services, the expenditure in education has been falling from 42.4 to 35.3%. If one looks at the UDIs and ISHI reports, one can see that there's very marginal increase in the gross enrollment ratio in schools. So from 2018-19 to 2021-22, the pre-COVID and COVID and post-COVID years, one can see that there's a very marginal increase in the number of enrollment and also a substantial dropout between secondary and high secondary levels. The All India Survey of Higher Education reports documents female gross enrollment ratio for the age group of 18 to 23 years, and that has also only increased from 26.4% to 28.5% from the year 2018-19 to 2021-22. So the issue of retention has been a major problem, especially in government schools and government colleges. Government policies like Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and Right to Education Act have helped in improving retention, but it did not and does not guarantee learning process and promotion to higher classes. And along with this, when NAP was introduced in 2020, one can see that it did not even talk about any structural or systematic changes in education, in the context of school education also. So the categorization of groups like socially and economically marginalized groups somewhere actually homogenized the different kind of discrimination. So the discrimination due to class, caste, religion, gender was not spelled out in the NAP report, and what kind of measures can be taken to address those kind of discrimination and marginalization was not deliberated. So here in this context, why the girl child in the city? And as I mentioned, that there has been quite many research studies by IDSK, by from different other groups, and which has been carried out, and which also largely shows and points out how child and early marriage has been a core reason for female dropouts in the districts and overall in general in cities and districts. So as I mentioned, girl child as a developmental category has always been a target of the nation state, and the several welfare schemes, so starting from Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao to Kanyashri, Medhashri, Shikhoshri, Oikoshri in Bengal, these have been implemented to support and to see that the empowerment and education of the girl child happens. The girl child and would-be woman here is definitely, it is a very defined category. So it is cis, heterosexual, reproductive, and familial. There's no deviation in that category. So has KP been a transformative policy? Has it helped in girl child education and empowerment? So I'll elaborate that in the coming slides. No study of KP at state and the state level schemes in Kolkata. Education, marriage, and employment. So existing literature also points out that how education, marriage, and employment plays a very intermeshed, interlocked terrain for the contested terrain for young women in India. Then moving on to also looking at, so how does the city figure here? And the city, like many other aspects and dimensions of the city, people migrate to the city also with a lot of aspiration. So aspiration for different kinds of work, aspiration also educational aspirations. And in this context, whether it is urban poor women or urban poor even as a category, one can see that the migration happens, and the educational aspiration of the migrant class, whether the migration is from the village to the city or from one city to another city, there's a constant change and urban flux which is characteristic of the laboring class in the city in the last decade or the last many years, because city has also been going through a lot of flux, through a lot of transition in case of the Indian cities. So there, the lived realities of the laboring class has also been changing. And in case of the recent years, if we take COVID into account, one can see that there has been huge dropouts in the, from government schools. The shift in educational methods has also led to massive shift in the kind of, in the way education and pedagogy in school has been happening. So introducing online classes, introducing digital resources, how it has impacted education and how it has impacted the impacted the communities that, who are accessing public education here becomes very important. It can also be seen that growing demand for English medium private schools by the urban middle class has been one demand which has been escalating in the last many years, maybe since the liberalization and privatization. So since actually scholars point out that since 2000s, early 2000s, that there has been a shift, and one can see that the market, how market economy has been also creating, has having its impact on education, and how private low-cost schools have been mushrooming mostly in cities, but also beyond cities now in the districts. One important data is privately managed schools, which nationally constitute 23% of all schools in India, constitute over 63% of all schools in urban areas and accommodate over 70% of enrollment. And this is written by Nalini Juneja in a very recent publication. So it shows that how in the city the scope, the education scape is changing much rapidly than in the village or the districts. So the broad questions in the research has been basically like, who is the girl child accessing state and central government schemes in the city? What is the impact of such schemes? What is the nature of dropouts and the reasons behind such dropouts? Is early marriage a phenomena in the city? And if not, what is the nature of interlockedness between education, marriage, and work in the city? What are the social economic challenges in post-COVID times contributing to dropouts? What is the situation of state-run education system, educational enrollment, infrastructure, teacher recruitment? Is the formal school and college education able to address the social, educational needs and aspirations of the young urban poor? For metrology, it has this very short duration study has primarily depended on interviews and group discussions, but a part of the data is also derived from government reports. So the UDI's reports, which is not, which actually is there, exists in the state level, like the reports as it comes to us is available as state level data. So here one had to, like we took the support of friends, and so Sabir Ahmed from Pratichi Trust actually helped us to find out and to actually filter the data of Kolkata. And one, here I'll refer to the years of 2011, 12, 15, 16, and 2021 to see how, what has been the marked changes in the enrollment and dropouts, and the kind of dropouts that one can see that is happening in the state level schools and the other private and other category schools. Qualitative part consists of interviews with school teachers, administrators, educators of community pathshalas, and 2 women's organizations, and few individual and group interviews with adolescent girls. The total number of interviews have been 16, and there have been 4 group discussions. It's a very small sample actually. The Pathshala consulted for this study are Batighar Pathshala in Kalighat, Shanghati School in Tala, Salt Lake and Goriahat, Pritilotar Pathshala in Charu Market, and Rokia Shikha Kendra in Patuli. The NGOs which has been consulted are Diksha, working with sex workers children in Kalighat, Munshiganj, and Shonagachi. Roshni, working with adolescent and young Muslim women in Rajabazar, Kolkata. The neighborhoods visited were Kalighat, Munshiganj, Patuli, Charu Market, and Salt Lake. This map is actually not very visible. Even if I zoom in, I don't think it will. So basically, these are the areas where I have, which I have visited for interviews and group discussions. The socioeconomic profiles of people So the families from where these children have been coming are, of course, like these are slum areas, and some of these neighborhoods have been very mixed neighborhoods. So the Charu Market neighborhood is a very big neighborhood where families come from different, from Bihar, from Bangladesh, from different other states, and it's a mixed neighborhood. It has a very mixed characteristic. On the other hand, Kalighat and Munshigant and these other areas have been very homogeneous neighborhoods. But whether it is a mixed neighborhood or a homogeneous neighborhood, it was very interesting to see that there's a lot of socioeconomic tension among families. And so the educational aspirations or the aspirations of people have been very competitive across the families who have been inhabiting these neighborhoods. Now coming to the analysis of the UDI's data, one can see here that, sorry. Yeah, so there are 5 tables which I have put here. Basically, so the school type is divided as state government, private and others. The state government schools are directly the schools which comes under the under the state government, so under Department of Education, Tribal Welfare and local bodies, and also KMC. The other category includes private aided, private unaided, central government, army schools, unrecognized, and madrasa recognized and unrecognized schools. So what one has done is basically look at each social category, so ST, SC and OBC across these types of schools, and also the gender division, boys and girls. And one can see that like in each of these tables, it is very important to see that the enrollment and retention in state government schools have dropped drastically during COVID years compared to 2015-16 and 2011-12. This is similar across all the social categories. Simultaneously, there is a rise in the private and other category schools in the COVID years in 2020-21. And also, so the rise, the fall from the state government schools and the rise happens simultaneously during this entire duration. It is also important to see that the total enrollment in the year 2020 and 21 have increased compared to the previous years. So if one takes along this like boys and girls enrollment and sums it up, it can be seen that it has increased from 2015-16. Similarly, the 2015-16 enrollment has increased from 2011-12. So there has been increased, but the increase has actually is actually going into the private and other category schools. It is not reflected so much in the state government schools. So why this trend of sudden drastic dropouts from public schools, and more so during the COVID years, and parallel increase in private schools? This is one of the questions that one will try to answer from the qualitative interviews. Similarly, it must be also pointed out here that the slow and steady increase of school enrollment across all social categories and gender-wise for a decade also makes us think about the positive impact maybe of the state government schemes. So the schemes, whether it is Konyashri, Shikshoshri, Oikoshri, Medhashri, which has actually started from the mid 2011 and continues, and there are more schemes which came after that. So even also if looking at Shobut Sathi or Toruner Shapno, which is much recent, so there is some positive impact of the schemes which is supporting more the girl child or specifically the girl child in accessing school education and continuing school education. So the overall increase in number of enrollment, whether it is in government, private or other schools, that is somewhere probably needs to be attributed to the state government schemes. But do they have direct impact on education and learning outcomes? Is a question that one needs to deliberate upon. So just having, maybe focusing on Konyashri Prakalpa for a bit, and drawing, so this is drawing from literature and also from reflections by participants. KP and all other schemes are supportive but do not ensure completion of school education. It remains as a financial support, delaying marriage. The objective of stopping child marriage is fulfilled. That is one of the sustainable development goals. It is not able to stop irregularities in school attendance or even dropouts, as just being registered to schools is the only criteria. Important to see that there is no statistical rise in the enrollment of boys, not achieving compulsory school attendance or leading to quality school education. And scholars have also pointed out that how the debate of education has to shift from access to schools to educational opportunities in the high school, whether it is in the high schools or in the colleges. Now, moving on to the findings from the qualitative field data. And here, so one can see that there has been huge dropouts in the city, the dropouts, and why the dropouts in the city. As one teacher in Shonarpur points out, the city gives a very different picture. The numbers are dwindling. There are more dropouts in schools of Calcutta. In my school, the number last year was 1852. This year, it has scaled up to 2100. In today's context, if they have even 350 students in a city school, they're happy. And there is, so all teachers and administrators keep on differentiating between good schools and bad schools. So within the government school category, there are these two basic categorization that people do. And good schools are those where schools keep track of their children, knows about their whereabouts. Attendance is an everyday affair, keeping in touch with guardians, effort to make studies interesting. And this is, of course, bad schools are those which where there is no effort or they do not know about what the children is doing. If one child is absent for even 1 month or 2 months, there are no phone calls from the school. Student and teacher numbers are falling. No parent-teacher meetings, or even if it happens, parents are chided by teachers. Another trend is, so when children are dropping out of school, one is maybe dropping out from the government school and getting readmitted in the private or some other school. But the other trend is dropping out of school entirely. And these dropouts also happen in classes 8, 9, 10. Some reason cited by people are, by teachers mostly, are precarity of work, relocation from one part of the city to another, or migration to another state. So the seminal question that why children do not attend schools, reasons cited by students themselves are that classes are not happening, and these are actually these are experiences post-COVID, okay? And so there's a pre-COVID and post-COVID time, and in the mindset of the students also, and even teachers, when analyzing, they also refer to pre-COVID and post-COVID. So now classes are not happening, teachers are not available, they're irregular, absent, teacher behavior is humiliating, abusive, and demotivating. Before COVID, it was a different environment. Teachers were more responsive and taking care of students. Situation of boys' schools are in more terrible shape compared to girls' schools. One is the numbers have been falling more in case of boys' schools because of the, and one, when one interrogates, one finds out that the economic pressure of earning is definitely contributing to this, and also no government schemes that is supporting boys. So this is a very marked difference between dropout of boys and girls. Class caste disparity between student and teachers have been increasing, more so in recent years, because there are more and more, so people who are accessing public education are coming from more and more oppressed and marginalized class and caste backgrounds. If there are certain families who are managing to climb up the social ladder, they are immediately probably taking out their children from government schools and readmitting them to private schools. Some critique of the Right to Education Act also happens, and these are mostly drawn from interviews. So teachers, this is what teachers reflect and say. Free education till classes 8 and then a sudden shift. It has been very difficult for students to adapt. Many feared this change. The sudden differentiation of no midday meal, school accessories are at some level quite discriminatory for siblings peers when one graduates to class 9 and the other is in class 7 and 8. Public schooling starts from 6 years, but preschooling is required more in case of first generation learners. And there is, so whether it is the RTA Act or other like policies, it doesn't at all reflect or talk about preschooling for children. Methods of evaluation like the continuous and comprehensive evaluation should be made mandatory to understand the progress of children in each class. And this CC, that is the internal evaluation till class 8, has not been instituted, is not carried out in most government schools. One of the reasons why it becomes very difficult for children, so one of course climbs up each class, but when one is promoted to class 9, it becomes very difficult suddenly because one can see that children are starting from scratch. And so starting from scratch means actually also learning ABC sentence construction from there. So teachers say that CCE should be implemented. Attendance should be made compulsory. Attendance till class 8 should be made compulsory. Doing away with exams till class 8 have only negatively impacted students. Children do not bother to study or attend classes. So again, coming back to this question of why children do not attend schools. So as pointed out, one can see the growing trend of enrolling children in low-cost private schools. And this is because working class parents want their children to be educated in private English medium schools, a trend which has been escalating in the years. Substance abuse has been one major problem in certain areas like Kalighat, Munshiganj, Tala. More and more girls or boys are slipping into addiction and substance abuse. COVID played a huge role in disrupting school habits. Online classes did not help in any form. It only helped to maintain the technicalities and formalities of education. Once away from school, there was a big gap in learning habits and motivation. The compulsoriness of phone as a device, and I'll actually discuss this more in the next slides. But one thing is that very few families could afford phones, first of all, during COVID. And even if they could afford phones, so it was one phone that was shared among siblings and even the parents during the COVID time. Now with Toruner Shapno, it's a very different scenario altogether. Economic hardships of COVID continue. Many have been forced to leave schools for work. And this is true both in case of boys and girls. Friendships lost during COVID and many dropouts in classes 9 to 12 create a sense of non-belongingness to schools. So many girls point out that they do not have any friends in any reference point and any friends in schools, and there are maybe hardly 5-6 people, peers who are attending schools in classes 9, 10, 11, 12. A lack of motivation to study, so many of them find it a very hard task to study and it very useless or meaningless because what is next after studying? So does it give you a job? Does it also, can you actually build your career through formal education? So the answer is no for them, and that is why study at all or why go to school at all? And aspirations here, it is very interesting. Aspirations are not always linked to formal education. So basically it is about not being able to relate to formal education, to formal curriculum and pedagogy. And from there also not being able to think or not being guided by teachers or people at home, and thus not being able to also link one's aspirations to formal education. In case of girls, this is girl dropouts. This is, I think, the most important phenomena of coming from violent homes, and not only violent homes, but violent neighborhoods also. So in most cases, in most interviews, actually almost in all interviews, one can see that home environment is very unsafe, violent due to domestic violence, either between parents or father and child, abusive father, a reality in almost every household. In many instances, it is single mother or grandparents raising children. Fathers are abusive, alcoholic, or absent figures. Situation where a girl wants to pursue science in higher education, but her brother objected, feared that the girl performs well and moves beyond the control of the family. Gendered roles at home, where helping, so this is very much a case of course, the oppressed caste class girl, where one is supposed to carry out all domestic chores and carry out a lot of responsibilities at home. So gendered roles at home, where helping in domestic chores and familiar duties fall on the girl child. Girls trying to escape conflict and violence at home through romantic relationships. One example again, where a girl is sent to shelter home by her own father because he wants to. So there's a domestic conflict, marital conflict between the father and the mother, and the girl becomes the victim of that. No one at home to inquire about studying, no one to supervise or help them to learn. This patriarchal control and surveillance actually goes beyond the family. Community neighborhood people as moral guardians and patriarchs, immediate public space always dominated and claimed by men, club, fields, lanes, alleyways, and roads. Girls surveilled by neighborhood people, where they go, what they do, and the same reported to their families. They visit scripted zones in the neighborhood. So there are actually a lot of accounts in these neighborhoods, in these slum areas, where the routine mobility of the girls are very much scripted by their families, and they have to follow those rules very meticulously. What they wear, whom they talk to, make friends with, are very much controlled by family and the outside society. If teasing, masculinity of neighborhood boys, verbal abuse, taunts, bullying are everyday affair. So of course this this percolates in the immediate growing up of the child, and also the education that one wants to pursue, school activities and everything. In case of girls, it can be seen that mobiles are the avenues somewhere to form friendships, romance, and also the way to marriage. So according to National Family Health Survey 4 data, 40.7% of women in the age group of 20 to 24 years were married before 18 years of age, which has only increased in the National Family Health Survey 5 data, where 48% of girls below 18 years got married. So early marriage is definitely a factor, but it has been only increasing, and it is contributing to dropouts. But in most cases in the city, it is very much a voluntary decision. So whether the girl, if the girl wants to marry, and if it is an underage below 18 marriage, that is very much a choice of the girl herself. It is through the phone that most romantic pursuits and liaisons are made. Internet plays a big role. Declarations, one interesting thing is declarations of love, marriage announcements, updates all happen through social media. It acts as a social sanctioning of marriage. So one does not need to go to temple or anywhere, but that one has married, one just uploads it as pictures, as videos, as reels on social media. And this is very important for the community, for the neighborhood also, to socially sanction the couple as married. Marriage becomes the license to roam around freely, which is otherwise restricted through patriarchal control. Social acceptance of marriage is more, and thus maybe the inclination also to marry. Sense of autonomy and freedom through marriage for the girl. Such early marriages by default lead to dropping out of schools. These marriages don't last, and girls often return to parental home. But adapting back to school and natal family environment becomes difficult and a challenging task. So this is the scene of one reason why early dropouts happen in case of girls. So looking at mobile phone as an electronic device, and here one needs to see that mobiles became mandatory during COVID, but it continues as a requirement post-COVID also. Electronic devices are made a necessary route for education. Toruner Shapno scheme also explicates that. Mobiles are used for all purpose, of course, social media, reels making, content creation, gaming, and romantic connections, not only education. Whether the government take any necessary, so here what becomes important to see that the government just introduced mobile phones, or actually the government introduced tabs or wanted to introduce tabs as a device through which education or online learning will also happen. But people end up, of course, buying mobile phones than tabs. And so the different attractions of the internet and the social media world is there. And so here, how to navigate that social media world, whether there is any training, any guidance to how to navigate the digital world. So digital literacy becomes a question here, and there the school actually doesn't play any role. For children where home does not give a sense of security, mobile creates a sense of escape to a fantasy world. Mobiles become a medium of escape from violence, humiliation, pain. Growing trend post-COVID-19 lockdown where adolescents roam in the neighborhood for free Wi-Fi connection so that they can play games or scroll social media. Physical fights at home for mobile phone, often foremost right given to the son of the family over mobile phones. Girls joining, and this is also another very important reflection from different neighborhoods, girls joining escort services through smartphones or falling in traps of human trafficking by connecting with strangers. So here one has to differentiate how also the middle class child and the laboring class child is accessing the internet, and what internet brings for these two different these two different lives, and the precarities and the vulnerabilities of the laboring class children, where the attractions of the social media and internet are very different, and they navigate it also very differently. So moving on to, so this is, I mostly spoke about the lived realities of people and from their perspectives. Now looking at the situation of public education system, and here these are mainly reflections from teachers. Pressure to close down schools if it is struggling with the number of students. No recruitment of new teachers to an extent that certain subjects do not have teachers at all. Teachers facing pressure of being transferred to other schools. Teacher recruitment has become centralized, jobs are transferable, that is having a negative impact on education. Teachers have no connection with marginalized communities they teach, because jobs are being transferred, and so if someone is located in the city and if someone is given posting maybe in the Sundarban or somewhere else, one has to first adapt and connect to the local region and people there, which takes a lot of time. So the way teacher appointments and transfers are happening, it is becoming very difficult. It is creating a lot of gap between teacher-student relationships, in the teacher-student relationship, and also negatively impacting the schools. So the prevailing differences, class, caste, and social differences between school teachers and students are widening as more and more oppressed class students are attending public schools. As we know, the termination of jobs of almost 26,000 teachers and non-teaching staff in government schools after the SC verdict in March 2025, what kind of calamity it has created, and it is also bringing a newer information about the government school situation in West Bengal. While a government school premise is used for various exercise, holding examinations, elections, government programs, etc., the necessary investment in terms of resources, human power, and money is always lacking. And here, looking at the privatization model through the new education policy, so though low-cost private schools have been a characteristic since the 2000 and have been more and more number of students are being enrolled there. The present day approach and scheme of privatization of education is probably a little different as reflected in the NAP. One is this, again, this centralized system of education where financially, administratively, everything is controlled from the central level. Idea of a centralized education is not new, but with digital surveillance adds to newer difficulties. And along with that, NAP recommending vocational education from class 6 onwards. So this is another new, new characteristic that will happen, that will be introduced in government schools, vocationalization of education. And this vocationalization of education from school itself, from class 6 onwards. This skill-based education also means people will remain restrained to certain kinds of employment. So, and of course, definitely a set salary. So whether this means about creating a new kind of working class, creating new cheap labor is a question here, because if from school there is attempt to institute skill-based education, and also one can see that the aspirations of people here, and when asked that they are actually aspiring and looking forward to such skill-based education because there is a promise of job after that. So aspirations of being educated, the way education is perceived has also been changing. Education is more about some skill sets, some technical knowledge, and being smart outward, being able to talk in English. The reason why more and more admission to low-fee private schools. The aspirations of the urban laboring classes are somewhere directed at skill-based education, which is manufactured through the education and the job market. And if one looks at the elite, whether the elite private schools or the low-cost private schools, one can see that the relationship between the teacher and student is that of a service provider and client in all these contexts. Government schools are not able to keep up to the needs and realities and aspirations of students in the rapidly changing socioeconomic world. With the advent of digital information and economy, there is also huge shifts in the social, emotional, and imaginary world of children, which is not being accommodated in the pedagogy and the curriculum of the public schools. And I'm almost towards the end. So the role of pathshalas here, the role that they play is basically, so all these pathshalas started with different political aims, but there are also some similarities in vision. One is to create a space where children can relate to what is being taught. Their struggle, their lived experiences, the violence and discrimination they face and witness become a part and parcel of the education. Aim at meaningful and value education, which is not limited to textbooks and formal education. The pedagogy is framed in a way, it is fun and activity oriented. It is about friendships, bonding and relating with the outside world. People are more emotionally invested. So a lot what has been reiterated by teachers is that there is care, warmth and sensitivity is missing from the way government schools function and teachers function in government schools. So the way these pathshalas function, they try to create an environment where it is like teaching one's own children. It is more about self, environment, people and community. So in Shanghoti school, they take children out for small tours to learn about environment, plants and animals. Other pathshalas too have been doing excursions to book fair, to the zoo, to bird watching and engage in recreational and sport activities. What Pathshala teachers also say is that children are not oriented to reading and writing at all and basic mathematics. Pathshalas trying to stress on that, some having language remedial classes, introducing them to new books, and some pathshalas have also created library space for children. Exposure to arts, dance, singing, because often people are not interested in reading and writing. Rokia Shikha Kendra also built a theatre group which has now expanded to three theatre groups of children, consciously trying to create an environment where there is less hierarchy and sense of power, making it a rule that children refer to the educators as elder siblings than call them ma'am or sir. Informality of pathshalas is not an informality by default. It is for creating a space where children feel safe enough to express themselves. Girls especially and little boys who are mostly restricted to home and schools use this space to express themselves without inhibitions and also share secrets, vulnerabilities. It gives them a sense of freedom, safe space, and also sense of ownership. The sense of ownership comes from feeling of safety and being nourished and cared for. And these are basically some recommendations by teachers and educators themselves like how to reform the present public education system, the school system. So what they suggest are, make the provisions of the RTE Act applicable till class 12, midday meals, books, uniforms, accessories, making education free till class 12, that is the suggestion. Increase financial investment and human resource in public education. Teacher recruitment needs to happen as necessary in schools. Teacher recruitment, transfer management need to be decentralized. Inspection of schools is very necessary. Children have been falling behind in basic reading, writing, mathematics, comprehension abilities. Making CCE, that is continuing and comprehensive education evaluation, mandatory till class 8, which is internal evaluation mandatory till class 8. Sometimes there is lack of very basic school infrastructures, and inspections are needed also to look whether toilets, drinking facility, electricity in the school is working. Just introducing mobile phones as electronic device will not work. Schools need to create infrastructure where students can access computer and learn. Basic computer training from primary levels needs to be instituted in schools. Sex and gender education in schools, from various discussions it can be seen that there needs to be separate set of workshops, classes, curriculum which can address the different questions around body, sex, gender, self, social world, where children are able to identify discrimination, abuse and violence. And if we want to leave, like I'm leaving with some remaining questions. One is, of course, with so much debate and so much reflection and introspection from teachers and educators themselves, like what is happening to the public school system, and how to interpret the trends of rising enrollment and of children in private schools, education being privatized, so the separate market of private schools making its own space and government schools slowly collapsing one by one. So this is one basic big question. Reassessment of the RTE Act of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, questioning the trope of the girl child also, and why not accessible, because through these interviews one can see it is not only, so dropouts are not specific to girls, it is happening to boys also, and more in case of boys. So why not accessibility and education for all children, and how do we complicate the category of girl child also if we want to look at the non-conformity of gender, so look at trans children or non-conforming gender children. How can one make teaching learning process a learner-centric experience? Students are not going to schools because they cannot relate to formal studies. And here, digital literacy training, computer access required for proper digital learning and pedagogical shifts, which cannot happen only through introduction of mobile or tabs as device. Teacher-centric support training modules resource needs to be created, which has not happened in many years. More focus. Also, through this research, somewhere it is felt that more focus is needed on educational situation in the urban context. Till now, urban has not been seen as a problem, and research on school education has focused on rural areas mostly. Even the UDI's data also do not represent the school education statistics of the city separately. So with these remaining questions, I'll actually like to conclude and open for further comments from everyone, from the chairperson, and for further discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Poushali. I don't think this is working. So thank you for this very interesting discussion, and the topic is also very important. I would use this. So I would open the floor for questions and comments, but before that, I would just like to raise one or two points. Now, as you say that this trope of the girl child itself, why do we concentrate only on the girl child and why not on each and every child irrespective of gender? I would say that, the focus needs to be on the boys rather, because the boys' dropout is much higher now. And if you look at education, given the low female labor force participation figures, what are these girls going to do? The girls are going to enter the marriage market. So the centrality of the marriage market, I found that the due stress on the centrality of the marriage market was a bit lacking in your otherwise fantastic presentation. So what I would like to stress on is that if we look at the marriage market, then the demand side of education, these boys who are being dropouts, who are entering the job market at a very tender age, what kind of girls would they prefer? And so that has its effect on the education outcomes of the girls as well, who are nonetheless doing better than the boys in terms of educational outcomes. And the second point that I would like to raise is that since you're looking at the impact of these, the COVID pandemic. So impact is a very technical term, otherwise technically loaded term. So looking at the impact of COVID pandemic on the educational outcomes of children is very difficult because we've also been trying to do that in our own work. So we do not have the pre-COVID figures for these children, these particular children. So the best we can do is, as you've done, asking recall questions and so on. But did you do learning outcomes? Did you measure learning outcomes of these children? So since these schools have started, the community schools that you have looked at, since these schools, most of these have started during the COVID pandemic, so I think a good way would be to do some learning outcome test on these set of children and compare those to the set of children who did not have the access to these kind of schools. So that could be one effective way of sort of, coming to a conclusion on the effect of teaching and teaching qualities and so on. And the last point, yes, just a small correction, NFH is 5. Maybe you just mentioned it, it was a, slip of tongue maybe. In NFH is 5, the early marriage figures for West Bengal is stagnant at 41.6. And it's the same as the NFH's 4 figures. So it's just same stagnant. It hasn't increased, thankfully. It was 46 in NFH's 3, but it is the same between NFH's 4 and 5. So that's all that I have to say. And now I open the floor for discussion and comments. So whoever has a question can raise your hand.
Poushali, so you have explored many things. You started with the macro scenario and then going to a micro study. So I think that my question is that how do you, in the macro scenario, you said something and you took so many parameters in your micro study. So how do you connect with the kind of macro picture that you hinted at the beginning with the micro findings? So can you think of some kind of a link between the two? And the second thing is that about the title of your deliberation, the dream deferred. So how to interpret the dream, right? So I think that if you use it as a metaphor for empowerment, that's a different thing. But so it may be that, and your fieldwork itself suggests that they are fulfilling their dreams elsewhere at the cost of quote unquote empowerment. So the question of pedagogy comes into being in this context, in the Paulo Freirean sense, because there are important working class studies, particularly I have in mind Paul Willis's work on learning to labor, how working class kids get working class jobs. So they subverted this oppressive schooling system. And so your reflections on that, and I think that it is problematic that you are arguing why they are dropping. Dropout is more from in post-COVID because of suddenly the teaching environment become more oppressive or the financial hardship. So I think that you are not specific on that because the financial hardship you are not explored. You have mostly hinted uh, the environment, the teaching environment has become more oppressive. So I have a little bit doubts about it. Thank you.
Hello. I think the macro picture was basically about why and how, like there is, the macro picture gave the picture of what is the situation of government schools with less and less decreasing investment, and also the picture of fallouts, dropouts from government schools. And when one looks at the qualitative interviews and the micro questions is asked, it can be seen. It is I didn't understand that, like what you meant exactly by not the macro picture not being linked to the micro findings, because the micro findings somewhere analyzes how and why, whether it is girls or boys, why they are not able to go to schools, why they are not opting for education, why they are dropping out of the school system. And the school system itself also going through many shifts, not only during the COVID years. I mean, the shifts has been happening from before. It is not suddenly during COVID. But during COVID, one can see some drastic changes. I think it is related to, one is basically the school education system, the closing down of the schools, and teaching and pedagogy trying to find its way through online classes, through digital medium, is one very big shift. Another big shift is the kind of policy level changes where, like the NEP coming into place and saying that everything has to be centralized. So administration, the schools are the teaching being centrally administered, the financially schools being centrally administered. I think these are some big changes which has led to a lot of challenges within the school education system, public school education system, and there is no improvement in terms of infrastructure, in terms of learning, like learning in infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and a lot of pressure on teachers. So teachers not being recruited, teachers not, so when children complain that teachers are behaving badly with students, or teachers are absent, not regular to class, it doesn't fall only on the teachers. It is basically the education system which is not being able to take care or investing, whether in terms of human resource or in terms of money. So these shifts are very structural shifts, which is somewhere also, maybe I think it is somewhere intentional. So you create the ground for the market to come in. You create the ground for privatization of education, which has been happening from before, but which is also changing a lot, have changed a lot maybe in the last 5-6 years. So that is one. And dream, like how I interpret dream deferred as, I mean, as it has been coined in this title, and so teaching environment and or financial hardships post-COVID, I think both are very important. So financial hardships, so these families or these communities have been grappling with grappling with money to earn for livelihood, and at the same time the education system has not been supportive, has trying to basically function, like exist and be there. But but the changes in lives of children, the changes in lives of even teachers are not being even seen as changes and shifts in the post-COVID. So the school, after the school is opening, after COVID, it is functioning in the same old ways, but there are maybe some, so the introduction of the mobile as a device, suddenly this introduction, and it doesn't have, so teachers are using it according to immediacy, according to need, according to instruction from authorities. But whether that kind of education is reaching children, whether children are accessing, whether they're in the online class, whether they're attending online classes, whether online classes are even being, so teachers are not even able to take roll calls within online classes. So these may look like very technical challenges, but it has an impact on the entire educational routine, the educational curriculum, and the pedagogical process. So I think the teaching environment going through massive shifts in the during COVID and post-COVID has its own journey, and along with that, the financial hardships of families, of laboring class families. These two play a role where it is becoming more and more difficult for children to continue education, and that is reflected more during the adolescent years, because that is where tests and evaluations are coming into the picture. So.
Poushali, Poushali, if you really allow me to think aloud, your very title, Dreams Deferred. It's not deferred, it's reconstructed. Don't you think so? I mean, when people generally stop attending government school, even their parents, I have examples where they have forced their children to quit their old school and join a particular makeshift English medium school. The dreams are constructed there. They've been taught to become smart sales girl in malls and other places. And number two, you see, basically, it's not a question of blaming anyone in particular, whether the students or the teachers. You know, one thing I have experienced as a teacher while teaching in my college, when a particular student used to ask a question to the teacher would have been almost forced to answer her directly. And with the introduction of online classes, they would say, well, I've given the answer in that chat box, you go and check for yourself. So she will not take the trouble of interacting with the teacher. Online classes has literally dehumanized teacher-student relationship. That is all I have to say. This is my observation. It's not a question for you. Okay.
Is that students do not eat midday meal. So it's a girls' school. A lot of kids are undernourished, but they don't eat it. And one of the reasons for that, so if you speak to the teacher, you get one version. You speak to the student, you get another version. For teachers, the answer is that girls are aspirational. They get some money from their parents. They go to the shops or the market next door. They want to have chips or whatever. And the midday meal does not fulfill their desire of eating what they want to eat. And students regularly talk about how utensils are not washed properly. There are insects in the food. They are not even given, doled out the food with some amount of care. it's slopping everywhere, it's dirty. So I was thinking about how for so long we have been told that this one cooked hot meal made from local ingredients is key to the nutrition and growth of young children. So is it key to anything in the scenario that you are describing?
Okay. So actually there are different versions here, and again the good schools and bad schools figure in this narrative. So midday meals or the PM portion now, the way it is carried out diligently by a school, it makes a lot of difference. So in some schools, they provide very good ration, like good quality ration, good quality rice, dal and egg, whatever. And in other schools, there are no, sometimes there are, I mean, so these are the narratives of teachers themselves and administrators themselves. Where one can see that even, so the way the PM portion money comes, sometimes or even it is not enough sometimes, and then one has to rewrite application, and for that transition period one has to maybe buy from one's own pocket. So the teachers, so in the good schools, quote unquote good schools, the teachers and administrators sometimes they buy from their own pocket and they claim reimbursements and from application. In the quote unquote bad schools, there is no inspection only that happens, and whatever, so sometimes the midday meal scheme through, I mean whatever quality of ration comes, it is cooked, it is of course delivered, and which like the students maybe they like they take it or they don't eat. So these are the, so that is where I think people were talking about inspection. So they were pointing out that inspection at school level, whether in case of midday meals, in case of course the school infrastructure, and also in case of studies and curriculum, there has to be proper inspection from government authorities, and that there has to be regular inspection. That is the demand that the teachers and administrators have been asking for.
So do we have other questions, or else we'll call it a day? Thank you very much, Poushali. Thank you, CRG, for organizing the lecture here. Yeah, we would like to have similar events in future too.